Hi again, heroes, and welcome to part 2 of our deep dive into the combat system of Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era. In part 1, we explored the foundations, from battlefield layout and hex mechanics to focus charges and interface details. If you missed it, there's a link in the description below. Today, we are moving further into the heart of battle. We will start with the visual details that surround each unit on the field and a quick correction from part 1. Yes, there is a retaliation indicator after all, and we will explore it. Thanks to Vitir and Mutant Brave for pointing it out. Next, we take a brief look at damage calculation, inspect the spellbook and more. I will also revisit some concerns some of you raised in the comments in part 1. The skip turn button with its familiar looking icon and the smaller battlefield. We will put those changes into perspective. Originally, this episode was meant to include a full battle showcase, but with so much to cover, it made more sense to give it a proper spotlight in part 3. A special encounter awaits, so stay tuned. I want to take this opportunity to thank all my existing subscribers for your ongoing support, and welcome all new subscribers. Great to have you here. And a quick notice for those just joining. Since some people keep mistaking my videos for official PR, this channel is not affiliated with the Olden Era dev team. As a fan of the Heroes series, I create content independently with my own perspective. If you want to know more about my recent collab and get more answers, feel free to watch this video. Link is in the description. Now, once more, the battlefield awaits. Let's get started. All Olden Era footage shown in this video is from a development build. Many icons, UI elements, visual and sound effects are still work in progress, and the music you hear throughout the video is not from the game. During battle, you can right-click on any unit to open a detailed info card, a feature familiar from earlier Heroes titles. At the top, you will find the stack size and the hit points of a single creature in the stack. The card also displays the unit's tier, giving you a quick sense of its overall strength and role. Just below that, a row of icons displays the unit's key stats: attack, defense, damage range, morale, luck, initiative, and speed, which in combat determines how far the unit can move. Unit stats in your hero's army already include the hero's bonuses. The base stats reflect the unit's natural strength, which are then boosted by the hero's stats, resulting in stronger units in battle. On the left side, the unit's abilities are listed, offering all the key tactical info at a glance, and hovering over them reveals even more detailed descriptions. And here you can see your 3D modeled unit from all sides. The only thing not shown here is which faction the unit belongs to. Experienced players will recognize units and know which faction they are from. A skeleton, for example, is obviously tied to Necropolis. But since Olden Era introduces new factions and also brand new units, it might be helpful to have that info displayed. For newer players especially, it will make learning the game and its many creatures smoother as well. In Olden Era, every unit stack displays a health bar directly on the battlefield, which shows the remaining hit points of the top creature in the stack. For example, if a stack of dragons is attacked, you will see the remaining health of the top unit's dragon. In all Heroes games, stack sizes appear next to each unit when combat begins. In Heroes 3, these numbers were purple, the same color for both your army and the enemies. When a unit was affected by a spell or ability, Its stack icon will change color: green for buffs, red for debuffs, and gold when both were present. This resulted in a colorful and visually dense battlefield, with a variety of icon colors. To get a clearer picture, you could right-click a unit to see exactly which buffs or debuffs were currently affecting it. Heroes 4 introduced something new. Each army has its own stack icon color, making it much easier to distinguish sides at a glance. However, this came with a trade-off. Buffs and debuffs no longer change the color of the icon. To know whether a unit was affected by a spell, you had to either memorize what happened or manually right-click and check the unit status. Heroes 5 reverted to a system more like Heroes 3. Once again, both armies shared the same color, typically blue, and the stack icons will shift color when effects were applied: green for positive, red for negative, and purple if both were present. It brought back the visual clarity of status effects, but at the cost of clearly separating friend from foe. Let's jump to Heroes 7. Heroes 7 returned to the Heroes 4 model. Each army had its own color, but icon colors didn't reflect buffs or debuffs. Instead, the initiative bar indicated whether a unit was under a positive or negative effect. However, readability suffered, as can be seen with this example. Heroes 6 was the only game to truly combine army distinction and visual clarity for unit effects, elegantly showing a unit status at a glance with green and red markers. Additionally, the initiative bar displayed buff and debuffs indicators as well. Fortunately, Olden Era adapts that very concept. Each army is clearly distinguished by its banner colors, making it easy to tell units apart on the battlefield. When buffs or debuffs are applied, clear visual indicators appear directly on the unit. Green markers signal positive effects, while red markers show negative ones. And as always, right-clicking on a unit brings up a full list of all active effects, still essential for making informed tactical decisions. Let's talk about retaliation. That classic mechanic where a defending unit strikes back when attacked in melee. In earlier games like Heroes 3, retaliation was always part of combat, but there was no visual indicator showing if a unit still had a retaliation left. You had to memorize which units retaliated, how many times, and just keep mental track, which I'm sure many experienced players managed just fine. Heroes 4 also didn't display any retaliation info. Heroes 5 improved on that. The game would show retaliation info when you hovered over the enemy unit. In Heroes 6 and 7, the system remained similar. Fast forward to Olden Era and things work differently. You see retaliation info right on the battlefield. From the start of a battle, you will notice an orange glow above the unit stack size icon. And that glow means the unit has at least one retaliation left. Once the creature retaliates, the glow disappears, letting you know it won't strike back again. And if the unit has multiple retaliations, the glow stays. This is where Olden Era really stands out. In previous games like Heroes 5, 6 or 7, you could only see retaliation info if it was your turn to attack and only if the enemy was in range, and only when you hovered over them. Here you get a constant overview, a subtle improvement with no guessing and no extra clicks. I actually missed this detail in my earlier video, especially with the example I used. I was looking for a similar indicator as in the earlier games. But once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it, and you will never miss it again. Let's take a quick look at how damage is calculated in Olden Era. We won't dive into exact formulas because those are still unknown and possibly still changing during development. But we can already understand what influences the damage a creature inflicts. The most important stats are the attacking unit's attack value, the defender's defense value, and the creature's damage range, the amount of damage it can deal per hit. Let's take undead pets. They deal between 4 and 6 damage per creature. In this example, with the supporting hero stats, their attack value is 8. If they attack a unit with exactly 8 defense, like neutral griffins here, their attack is essentially neutralized. What that means is there's no bonus and no penalty applied to the damage. The attack and defense cancel each other out. So 100 undead pets would deal between 400 and 600 damage, as shown in the damage preview. The exact amount depends on a random roll, meaning the game randomly picks a number between their minimum and maximum damage for each attack. Then the game checks how many enemies would die from that amount of damage. Now let's look at what happens when the defender has more defense than the attacker's attack. In this example, the undead pets attack upgraded griffins, which have a defense of 10. That's 2 points higher than the pet's attack of 8. And we can already see it in the preview. The potential damage range drops to 373 to 560, lower than what we saw when the griffins had only 8 defense. That's because a penalty is applied when your attack is lower than the target's defense. The bigger the gap, the heavier the penalty. Now let's flip the situation. When your attack is higher than the enemy's defense, you gain a bonus instead. Our undead pets now strike swordsmen with only 3 defense. That's a bigger gap, 5 points in favor of the attacker, and we see that immediately reflected in the preview. 487 to 730 damage. So even though the number of undead pets stays the same and their base damage is still between 4 and 6, this attack advantage gives them a damage bonus. Beyond base damage, factors like hero skills, spells, bonus from artifacts can further influence the outcome, as was the case with earlier Heroes games. Ranged attacks lose strength over distance. If the target is 3 or more hexes away, damage is reduced by 10% per hex, up to a maximum of 50%. Let's look at luck, a critical stat that can flip a fight. 10 vampires are about to attack guardian griffins. They deal a fixed 30 damage per unit, so they should do exactly 300 damage with no modifiers. But due to the large stat gap, the preview shows 490, no luck involved. If luck triggers, it jumps to 735. That's a clean 50% bonus, directly translating to 50% more units killed. One more mechanic to cover is damage caps. In Heroes 3, bonus damage from high attack didn't scale endlessly. It capped at plus 300%, reached when attack was 60 points higher than defense. Likewise, there was a penalty cap. When defense was 28 points higher, damage was reduced by a maximum of -70%. In Olden Era, the exact numbers aren't confirmed yet, but there's likely a similar system. So to sum up, damage in Olden Era is determined by a few key ingredients: the number of attacking units and their base damage range, the difference between attack and defense, and whether any luck, hero skills, spells, or possibly even terrain or special faction perks apply. Olden Era shows you a damage preview before every attack. So even though the exact formula isn't public yet, we can still make educated decisions on the battlefield by understanding what factors go into it. Morale in Olden Era works similarly to Heroes 3. When a unit's morale triggers positively, it immediately gets a second turn, rather than just advancing its spot in the initiative bar like in Heroes 5. If negative morale triggers, the unit loses its turn entirely for that round. So morale remains a crucial stat. It can grant your units extra turns or punish them with complete inaction. This is the spellbook in Olden Era. Each spell icon gives you all the key information at a glance. At the top, you will see the mana cost. At the bottom, the Roman numeral indicates the spell's tier. Spells in Olden Era can be upgraded, and the number next to the tier shows the current spell level. And if you hold down Shift and click on a spell, you will get a detailed breakdown of what each level of that spell actually does. Each spell also has a colored outer ring that shows which magic school it belongs to. At this stage in development, Olden Era does not feature traditional war machines like ballistas or first aid tents, which acted as additional units in Heroes 3 and 5. Currently in Olden Era, the only war machine present is the catapult, which is used during siege battles. Let's take a moment to revisit the button next to the wait button. In Olden Era, it looks like the traditional defend command from earlier Heroes games. But it's technically a skip turn button by default. Let's first speak about its general function. Having a skip turn button in combat is necessary as a fundamental mechanic to end a unit's turn when it chooses not to attack or use an ability. If a unit doesn't take an action, it can wait temporarily. However, if it's still that unit's turn later in the same round and it doesn't want to act, it can't simply wait again. It needs to explicitly skip or pass the turn. This allows the game to move forward, and the unit then regains all options again at the start of the next round, assuming it survives that long. Some viewers were disappointed to see that it no longer grants a defense bonus on its own. Instead, a hero needs to learn a specific skill to turn that button into a true defend action. One that not only adds a defense bonus, but also provides an additional perk. It's a notable change, and I can see why it caught some home players off guard. Let's inspect it more closely. In previous games, defend was a universally available option, often used when a unit didn't have a more pressing action, providing a reliable fallback to reduce damage and maintain formation. In Olden Era, the ability to defend becomes something you specifically invest in, making it a conscious part of your hero development. Overall, this change shifts defensive option from a default fallback to a strategic choice, encouraging players to plan their hero's growth and combat approach more deliberately. Some viewers were concerned that the battlefield in Olden Era is smaller than in past Heroes games, and that all creatures only take up one hex, even big ones that used to take up more space in earlier games. Unfrozen previously mentioned online that they drew inspiration from earlier Heroes games and from King's Bounty. So, for research purposes, I decided to play King's Bounty, and I genuinely enjoyed it. The game uses a very similar system: a smaller battlefield, one hex units, short movement ranges, yet battles remain surprisingly tense and highly tactical. The developers at Unfrozen seem to have looked closely at its combat system. Its compact arenas and deliberate pacing offer a clear example of how scale isn't everything, when each move carries weight. If we go back even further, the comparison to chess becomes clear. A tiny board, every piece occupying a single square, even the powerful queen, and yet the game is rich with strategy. Every move matters, every position counts. So what do these games have to do with the past Heroes titles? While the battlefield size and shape played a role, at their core the classic Heroes games were about making smart decisions in limited space, maximizing the impact of every unit, every spell, every turn. From what I've seen, the devs at Unfrozen aren't trying to replicate the old games piece by piece. It seems like they are more interested in exploring what made those battles engaging and how to build around strategic positioning and meaningful choices with a kind of tight, tactical focus in Olden Era. This shift in Olden Era's battlefield design also has an impact on ranged units, since they can't be protected as easily and are generally closer to danger than in past games, making them feel a bit more vulnerable and less dominant than before, in a way that demands more careful planning. As for the larger units and their sizes, from what I gathered, due to the creatures being fully 3D, making them occupy multiple tiles in a hex-based system caused technical and gameplay issues, and therefore the developers opted to keep all units at a single hex size to maintain clarity and consistency during combat. I will speak about that and their designs in detail in an upcoming video. At first, I wasn't sure how to feel about the battlefield changes myself, judging from the first screenshots and videos. And after spending some time with battles in Olden Era, I can say that once you see how it actually plays, you not only get used to the battlefield, you also start to appreciate the thoughts behind the design and the tactical flow of combat. That concludes part 2 of our journey through Olden Era's combat system. We have now laid all the groundwork, but theory only takes us so far. Next up is finally a full arena battle, with the Sylvan faction stepping onto the battlefield for the very first time, coming in part 3, very soon. Thanks for watching, and as always, thank you for your support. See you in the next one.